I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me.
Hey everyone, are you rad for Christ? You fired up for Jesus? Welcome back to another episode of Radical Christianity, the talk show that highlights God in action. I am Drew, your host, and I am glad you have joined us today. How many here have witnessed or experienced the power of prayer when it comes to healing? A lot, right? Well, check your travel plans, folks, because it may soon become illegal to pray for the sick in one of the largest countries in the world. How, you might ask? Well, lawmakers in India are putting Christianity itself in jeopardy by recently passing a bill that bans the practice of magical healing, which happens to include prayer. Offenders are reportedly facing 100,000 years in prison. Wow, seems pretty harsh, right? What's next? Public flogging for giving food to the poor? Seems pretty absurd if you ask me. I guess all that leaves is preventative prayer. You know, like preventative health care. Dear God, please don't let me get sick. Prayer is one of the most vital aspects of not just Christianity, but practically any religion. Criminalizing prayer is like criminalizing God. You can try, but we all know the power of faith. James 5:13 tells us a prayer offered in faith makes a sick person well. Hey, speaking of prayers, how does a pirate begin his prayers? Our Father. Sadly, though, this does seem to be directed at Christians. According to the news sources, the chief minister of the state of Assam has said the bill is an important milestone to curb efforts of evangelism in Assam. Ouch. Apparently, many are already facing violence and mistreatment there, as conversions to Christianity are seen as controversial by some of the other faiths. If signed by India's president, this bill could give rise to false allegations and systematic discrimination. So today I ask you to keep India and the well-being of our brothers and sisters overseas in your prayers. Hey, I have a question for you. What is the best way to say grace before eating a salad? Let us pray. All right, everyone, that's it for now. Tell me, you rad for Christ? Fired up for Jesus? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this next guest, he has got a heart for Jesus and a lot of stuff to say. You are going to love this guy. Let's have a huge, warm welcome for Paul Haroutunian. Welcome, Paul.
Good to be here, Jen.
Thanks. Have a seat.
All right.
All right. Paul, welcome to Radical Christianity.
Good to be here, Drew. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad that you're here. You know, we had to schedule this interview way ahead because you're a busy man.
Well, some good things are going on, so God's doing some things, so it's good to be a part of it.
Fantastic. So what we do here is we go from testimony to ministry. So if you could please share with us how you met Jesus.
Sure. I think to start it out is giving a little bit of my background.
Okay.
And so I'm Armenian, and for those of you know, my grandparents escaped from Turkey in the early 1900s. 1923, I think my grandmother came over. But there was the genocide, and so my grandmother, her whole family was killed, and a Turkish family took her in, and she escaped on a donkey through Syria. And so all my life growing up, you know, sad to say this, but all our life growing up, I was taught to hate the Turks. That's just part of our Armenian history, unfortunately, and so that's what I grew up with. And you know, we went to church, you know, we went to the Apostolic Armenian Church. I had perfect attendance pins because we were there every Sunday. My parents were involved in Sunday school teachers. We went all the time, and I understood very little. So I went away to college, and on Sunday mornings, that was free time for me now. I didn't have to go to, it was great. And so that went on. First year, you know, studied hard, and, by the end of my first year, I was like, okay, the grades are starting to come in, but I still had this emptiness inside. So, second year, I started checking out fraternity living, and I found the night after the parties, the guys in the fraternity were just as empty as I was. And I'm like, there's got to be more. So my junior year, I met a gal in one of my classes, of course, right? And she was cute and smart, and so we did a lot of stuff together. And one day, we were sitting on the quad together, and I saw her bowing her head. And so I looked down, I said, "Are you missing something?" And she said, "I'm saying grace." And I'm like, oh, wow. And I saw her reading her Bible, and I thought to myself, I'm at the University of California. What are very intelligent people doing? I'm studying biochemistry, reading their Bible. I mean, come on. But as I watched her life, I saw there was something different about her. And so Christmas break came, and she gave me a copy of the Bible. And during that time also, I was trying to make a move on her. That didn't go very well. And so instead of making the move, I got a Bible. And so I felt like taking the Bible and just chucking it. But then I realized, you know what? I respect her. I'm going to take this Bible. So I took the Bible and went home over Christmas break, and I started reading it. And I came to the passage that says, love your enemies. I closed the Bible. I said, that's ridiculous. Love your enemies. How can that be possible? And I thought to myself, wait a minute. If this could possibly be true, that we could learn to love our enemies, this could change the world. So I picked it back up and kept reading. And all of a sudden I realized I wasn't the basically great person I thought I was. I didn't realize it. I was using people. I was looking out for me. And one of the verses I love, which has meant a lot to me since then, is 2 Corinthians 5:15. It says, he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died and rose again on their behalf. We just got done with Easter, right? Rising, Jesus rose, but should no longer live for themselves. Wow. So, I had a radical encounter with Jesus. My life changed. I started devouring the Bible, and that's how I came to Christ.
That's awesome. So that was in college.
That was in college, and so to continue the story a little bit, I went home that summer, and I said to my friends in college, I said, hey, I'm going to go home and lead my parents to Christ. And they all looked at me with that, yeah, right. That's not, you kind of new Christian. That's nice. Parents don't come to Christ, Paul. You're going to get that. I'm like, no, I'm going to lead them to Christ. So I went home that summer, and, again, mom and dad, very religious. And so one day I just quoted mom a scripture. Again, my parents, great parents. And mom looks at me after I quoted her the scripture, and she says, Paul, I appreciate you reading the Bible, but don't ever quote me a scripture again. It was like, whoa. So we talked a little bit more, and I said to her, through our conversations, I said to her, Mom, why don't I see you reading the Bible? And she's like, you don't have to read the Bible to be a Christian. And that's actually true. You don't have to read the Bible. Illiterate people, you don't have to read the Bible to be a Christian. But Christians read their Bible. And I'm like, wow. And then one morning we were picking some prunes. I was getting up early, and I was just reading my devotional that morning. And I came across 1 John chapter 2, verse 6. It says, the one who says he abides in him ought to walk in the same manner as Jesus walked. And then I got it. But the verse, I came home that day and I said, Mom, what's the goal of the Christian life? And she said, to be like Jesus. Good answer, Mom. And I said, Mom, how can you be like Jesus if you don't read the Bible to find out what he's like? And there was a pause, and it was almost like the Spirit of God went, whew, Time stopped. And that night she said to my dad, your son doesn't think I'm a Christian. Which I didn't, but I didn't say that. Would I say it? No. And so over the next few days, she started reading her Bible, and she got to Romans chapter 3, and she realized she was a sinner, and she became a Christian. And then later that summer, Dad was kind of avoiding it. My dad's got a couple master's degrees. He was very smart. And we're sitting around the table. We kind of trapped him there, and he says, okay, you kids, what's the problem? I believe in God. And this just came to me. I said, Dad, why don't you believe in Buddha? He says, I don't know. I said, Dad, there's a difference between Buddha and Jesus, and you need to find out what that difference is. And so Dad started reading his Bible. He started from the back, Revelation, to the front. And one day as he was taking us back to college, I was late, as usual. And so I'm going to pick him up. I'm like, oh, man, I'm going to get it for being late. Dad driving us, And Dad's like, calm. I'm like, Dad, what's the problem? He's like, you kids pushed me up against the wall, and I just said a little prayer, and everything's okay now. And Dad had become a Christian. And so it went from why is Paul and his brother Greg and Sue off the deep end to now look at Mom and Dad. They went off the deep end. Dad was on the board of trustees of the church, and the church, as many churches, right, was struggling with, we're losing our young people. Where are all the young people? And someone said, we need more social events. And my dad says, we don't need more social events. We need more Bible studies. And the whole board looks and says, what happened to Vahak? He got born again.
Nice.
So our family, by the grace of God, all became Christians. Mom and Dad became Bible study fellowship leaders. So here Mom went from, don't ever quote me a scripture again, to teaching women over many years, 15, 20 years, the Bible and Bible study fellowship.
That's very cool.
So it's a cool story here. It's like, guess what? Parents can become Christians.
Yeah. And, your brother's obviously, well known in the area.
Greg's a pastor at First Armenian Presbyterian, right? Where we go to church. I'm one of the elders there. So, yeah. So it's been great.
That's the big Armenian church in town, right?
Well, there's 4 Armenian churches. There's First Armenian Press, there's Pilgrim, there's Holy Trinity, and St. Paul. So those are the 4 bigger Armenian churches in town.
Right. And so what would you, because, is it Armenian Orthodox or just,
Well, there's a blessing and the challenge of being at an Armenian church. Because, I don't know if you know this, but Armenia was the first nation to adopt Christianity as a state religion in 301 AD. So that's a very cool. A couple of the apostles took the gospel there. Unfortunately, they were martyred there in Armenia, but Armenia experienced a revival in 301 to where they made up a new alphabet. They burned all their previous books. There was genuine, wide-scale revival in Armenia. So Armenia has a heritage of being Christian. But unfortunately, over the years, as someone has said, the faith of our forefathers can become the tradition of today. Mm-hmm. So it's a challenge. Are you coming to church because it's part of your Armenian culture? Or are you coming to church because it's part of your Armenian culture and you're a born-again Christian? That's the challenge.
I got you. Yeah, so I imagine, that's probably true with a lot of Christians.
Exactly right. I remember a coworker. I was working in a hospital, and one of the coworkers came up to me and said, "Paul, what's the difference between a Catholic and a Christian?" Whoa, how do you answer that question? And so, with the Spirit's help, I was able to say, there's Catholics who are Christians. There's Catholics who aren't Christians. There's Baptists who are Christians. There's Baptists who aren't Christians. There's Armenians who are Christians. There's Armenian. It's all about a personal relationship with Jesus, not what denomination or church you go to. So that's the good news.
Yeah. When someone asks me about Catholic, what's the difference between Catholic and Protestant? I'm all ritual.
Right, because you look and you just say, hey, it's we can go to church, for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. Just it's like you've heard it said, right? Just because you park a car in a garage, And just because you're in the garage doesn't mean you're in your car. Just because you go to church doesn't mean you're necessarily spiritual.
Right, and that's true. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't know that they're not spiritual, which I see often. Which it's just you can't. They don't give you the permission to dive into their life, so you just can't convict them. You know what I mean? And it's not nice to do that anyway. It's like,
well, which is why when you lead your life and you pray, and then at the right opportunity, it's like, hey, Drew, I was, and that's what's, been changing me. I love to share my faith because someone shared with me when I was 20. It's like, oh, so many wasted years. If I would have known, but, in Colossians 4, it talks about praying for an open door for the word. So that's what I do a lot now, praying for an open door. And when the door opens, I'll drive it through.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's how it should be. You guys got that? You guys got that? All right.
Pray for example, when I was a pharmacy tech in the hospital, and I remember walking up to one of the nurses' stations. I said, hey, is so-and-so there? And the nursing supervisor says, why? You going to try to convert her? It's like, wow, is that an open door or a closed door? That's a closed door. And then I went to have lunch with the nurse I was having lunch with, and she said, hey, Paul, I was reading Job. Oh, you're reading Job, huh? Well, to any unaccustomed to reading the Bible person, J-O-B is not Job, it's Job. And so that was an open door, and I was able to share the gospel. And so it's like, it's looking, where is God working in people's lives? So they say, hey, Drew, would you tell me more about why you have joy? Tell me more about, as opposed to trying to shove it down people. I found that doesn't work.
Yeah, it
Very
doesn't.
well.
Yeah, I mean, you there are people that are motivated by guilt, but they have to actually care first. You want
the real. You want the real deal.
Yeah. The thing that bothers me is those Sunday only Christians. You know what I mean? It's you wonder, how do you get through to those people? You know what I mean? The ones that they do come to church, but once they drive off campus, they're flipping the bird in traffic and swearing at people, and who knows, drinking, having affairs on their wife, who knows what they're up to during the week,
Right, which is why over time we'll be able to see, right? Because you can hide things for only so long, and the way I like to describe it is, it's like it's an island, and my job is to go around the island and look for an opening. Everyone has an opening in their life, whether it's their job, their relationship, their kids, their finances. Everyone's got, it's like Augustine says, right? That we all have a, what is it? It's slipping my mind right now, but it's like there's an open wound we all have, and that's just the way it is. And so it's just going around and looking for it. And then I remember I was on a plane one time sitting next to a guy from Morocco. I don't know if you know about Morocco. Mm-hmm. It is big bucks to live there, okay? This guy's watch cost more than probably what I was making. I mean, this guy was handsome, showed me a picture of his girlfriend. She was beautiful. I mean, this guy had everything. And I'm sitting there, you ever been there where you're talking to someone, you're like, hey, I wish I was them, And I'm like, and so I was just kind of like, oh, wow, how am I going to get the gospel to someone who has everything? I didn't know what to do. And, half hour into the flight, we're talking there, and I'm going, I got nothing. I'm trying to how do I get the gospel? How do I share the good news of Jesus with someone that doesn't really need it, or so it seems? And then I just pulled out a picture of my family, and I said, oh, this is my family. And he just said, I hate my dad. I said, whoa. You hate your dad? I hate my dad. I said, oh, well, you can't get to heaven. What are you talking about? Oh, it says right here. If you hate, right, your brother and sister, you can't. And it was like, whoa, we've all got that area in our life, right? That, the Lord will put his finger on. And I was able to share with him how, you know what? Regardless of your past hurts, Jesus loves you. And he can love you and change your hard heart. And you can love those that have hurt you the most, or in my case, love my enemies.
There you go. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, the hating the father thing, that's actually not uncommon. You know, a lot of boys suffer that, you know. That's, you know, it's like half the Oedipal complex. You know what I mean? The other half is weird. You know, but you know, that whole father-son conflict, that goes on a lot, you know. And I think that it's not exclusive to this country, but I think it's worse here in the U.S. than most places because of our culture and the culture of rebellion that we have, like that we have just in general.
It's a tough thing, and I think that's why I'm a big proponent of men's ministry, just because, you know, I don't know if you've seen pictures where they show a lot of the social ills in our society. You can trace it back to fatherlessness or a lack of a father. And it just kills me, right? As a father, it's like, Paul, step it up. You got to be a good dad, you know. So
that is the biggest problem in this country is the breakdown of the family, and the major breakdown is the father's not in the picture. And they even have statistics that show if the father is at home in the family and is going to church, that the family will go to church, and the sons in that family, who are the least likely to go to church, will be in church and, you know, most likely take their family to church. So it's as sexist as it may sound, you know, that we men have an obligation, you know. Especially
and I think
families.
that's exactly right, and that's where it's the leadership, and it's you know, sometimes people get nervous about, you know, well, Paul, what are you talking about, males leading, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. I want to be the one that takes the bullet. I want to be the one that's, oh, okay. I want to be the protector. I want to be the one that's, you know, it's, you know, husbands love your wives and wives respect your husbands, but it's like, it starts with the guys. You know, it's like, who's doing Bible studies at 5 and 6 a.m.? Most usually, it's not the guys. Mm-hmm. You know, I had a friend was at a conference once, one of the pastors I know, and the woman was speaking, and she said, well, everybody knows when the army of God marches, it marches in high heels. And everybody was laughing. And he wasn't, because, you know, women get up early and are doing Bible studies. For guys, when we get together, it's, let's watch Monday Night Football, Drew. That's our fellow. You know, and so I'm a big proponent of, guys, let's step it up. When the guys step it up, good things happen.
Yeah, definitely. That is true. I mean, I have seen a lot of stuff happen in families that start with the men. I've also seen it start with the women.
Exactly.
You know,
I mean, we want everyone following Jesus, but
right.
It's just that guys tend to be a harder shell to crack.
We tend to be a harder shell is a good way to but we're very tough. We're as we grow up. You know what I mean? If you show weakness, you get your butt kicked. You know, that doesn't usually happen to women the same way that it happens to us. You know what I mean? It's like we have to face the violence that goes along with, you know, strength and weakness. You know,
yeah.
And that little element about being male, you know what I mean, is the first thing that we really face. You know, when we're young, about what it means to be male. You know, and then we have to, you know, we deal with, you know, hopefully our father's around and can explain to us. It's like, you know what, you got to toughen up. You know, sometimes you got to fight back. Sometimes you got to turn and run. But, you know, it's like, but you can't, you know, you can't let them push you around. Because if you
like the limp handshake is like, come on,
right?
Let's go.
Yeah, and you know, it has major consequences. You know, it does. My father and my mother got divorced when I was real young, and my dad wasn't really around much after that. And you know, I already had a grounding of faith. You know, he was actually a Southern Baptist, you know, ordained reverend. So you know, there was a lot of like that knowledge in the family. He you know, when I was younger, they was taken to church. My grandparents on my mother's side and my father's side were both very grounded in faith. You know what I mean? So like, both the sides of the family were there. So I did have the thing, but I didn't have a good, strong relationship with my father.
And that's got to tear you up, right? When they broke. I mean, it's like, it affects you.
Well, it did. It affected me. I didn't realize how much it affected me. And then when I got older, I kept making attempts, but there was just, it doesn't seem like there was much desire on his part to have a relationship. You know what I mean? So it was, and then he eventually passed away, and, it's like one of those things, well, hopefully I'll see him in heaven and we can,
Talk about it. Not really, but yeah. No, Augustine's, it's like a God-shaped vacuum. And it becomes a little bigger when you go through something like that where, wait a minute, people of faith we're all sinners and we all make mistakes like that, but that's devastating.
Yeah. And your father's your leading role model. You know what I mean? He's the
ties you right up to God and so many people, right? Your father figure. And so it's like, oh.
And, there's a lot of route in my life that was off track that can be directly, related to...
Traced to that.
Yeah.
Probably trying to compensate, right?
Well, it's more than just compensation. It's trying to figure out, you know what I mean? It's like, my stepdad wasn't real strong when I was, he's a recovered alcoholic now. So during that time, he was still drinking when I was young, and my parents, when my mom started, being with him.
Wow.
And then, so, but when he got older, you know what I mean? He got sober and, different kind of man. And, now my stepfather and I have a good relationship.
That's really great.
And I mean, it's like everything I know about woodworking and tools and all that kind of stuff I did learn from my stepdad, and, so it's like I even probably got, like the being tough element, from my stepdad,
Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing. But
what helped you kind of get over that healing of the brokenness of your...
getting over, obviously my life was back and forth like crazy all the time, just trying to pursue something to, for stability. But then, Jesus was always still there. Even though I didn't necessarily always put him first in my life, he was still part of my foundation. And I couldn't turn my back on my belief, even if I wanted to, because it was impossible to deny what I understood to be true, So, there was always that coming back to the church, always that coming back thing, because it was just there, I would say that reading my Bible and having a good relationship with Jesus, is probably the best healing source. The pain is still there. The pain is. This is not a Drew counseling moment, so I'm not going to go into it. But there was a lot of times in my life where things didn't go very well. My father was a little physically abusive. You know what I mean? I've had I've had challenges. Yeah. I don't want to go down that road right now.
But that's why we need Jesus, right? And that's part of your testimony of what you share about, hey, you don't understand my life, Drew. It's really messed up. Well, actually, I do understand some of that I may not.
Yeah, I believe that that experience has taught me a lot of things, and it's also probably one of the things that made me not want to have children. You know what I mean? I kind of did, but I was never really like, I gotta have kids. You know what I mean? It's because I was always afraid of my father coming out in me. You know what I mean? And so, so I don't have children to this day, and it doesn't mean I won't, but I'm getting up there in years. So it's the odds are, slim.
Not necessarily. If you heard my story, you'd be surprised.
Well, we're listening to your story. But the truth of the matter is that it is important that for all fathers out there who are watching, that you are the head of household. Whether it's Whether you're, wearing the pants in the family, that's your own family dynamic. But no matter what, being the man of the family, if you don't step it up and you don't get your family to church, and you can't necessarily force them. You could probably force them all in the car, but if you go to church yourself, you get yourself at church, you get your nose in the Bible, you pray about your family, you will see it change.
Well, and it's not so much as getting them to church, right? It's your lifestyle. It's like I just was telling my wife yesterday, I took my daughter to volleyball, and I was like, okay, good, volleyball's going on. I got some things I can do right here. No. Guess what she's doing while she's out there? She's watching me to see if I'm watching her. Dad, would you video me on this? Would you? And I just realized my job is to focus on her. They want that look. And so.
Yeah, definitely. That's an important thing. Yeah, I remember many a sporting event.
You're looking for are they watching? Are they watching?
Yeah. Yeah, that is real important. So, you're married with kids, obviously, and
I got married late though.
Oh, yeah.
So, I
wasn't that girl in college, I guess.
It wasn't the girl in college. No, I was one of those that was looking to marry Jesus' sister, and when I finally realized that I wasn't Jesus, and one of the things as you grow in your Christian faith, you realize it's easy to say a lot of the problems, Drew, they're all out there. But I think maturity comes when you start to say, wait a minute, the problem is right here. And if I can work on my problems, my issues, my humility, my pride. So I got married a week before my 55th birthday. I don't recommend that for everybody. All right? Don't fall. But God has ways of working even in spite of some of us that are knuckleheads and bring in the right person. And so I've got married, and so now I've got 2 kids. And so it's a blessing, and I'm learning and trying to, again, one of that is not marriage counseling right now, but one of the lines from a counselor I heard, Paul David Tripp, is at the end of our first little video series was, I am the problem in my marriage. It's not my wife, it's me. And she's sitting there, it's like, if Drew works on Drew, Paul works on Paul, you all work on you all, things become a lot worse. When I try to change my wife, it doesn't work very well.
No.
When I try to change me, it barely works.
I believe the same philosophy. I look at it a little bit different as like who the problem is more like what I have control over.
That's good.
I have control over myself and my actions, what I do, what I say. I have a girlfriend and she gets mad at me when I take responsibility for things that go wrong. And she's like, that's not your fault. I'm like, I'm apologizing for it because I have control over being able to do that.
I have a choice. That's right. You can't control everything, but it's like, no, I could have done that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Acknowledging what I could have done different and not expecting anybody else to do anything.
That's exactly.
That's
right.
my approach.
Yeah. And humility is a great thing, something that I need to work on, all of us, but just like humility goes a long way is what I'm learning.
Yeah, it does. In fact, humble at the right moment will actually result in great respect.
That's exactly right.
We are out of time. The interview just breezed right by. It was great, man.
Wow.
You're gonna have to come back some other time, and we'll have some more talks.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Drew.
Thanks for coming. We have a saying here. You're definitely rad for Christ. You're definitely fired up for Jesus, and we love to see that here.
Great.
God bless you.
Follow the Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Yeah. It's housekeeping time. Yes. Housekeeping, that's the time that when I sit here and talk to you about how radical Christianity is funded off of donation. We are not rich, wealthy millionaires here. We, do this on a volunteer basis at this time. And we would love it if you would help us make sure that we can keep this show, keep doing what it's doing, right? So if you have $5, $10, $15, $20, $100 that you can share with the show, it would be awesome. You just go to our website, radforchrist.com. It's RAD, the number 4, Christ.com. And there is a link at the top of the website there. It says donate. Just click that link, and it'll take you to the Mr. E Christian Media donation page. And now Mr. E Christian Media is the 501c3 nonprofit that we operate this show through. It is a media ministry. There is a drop down in that page that will help you select Radical Christianity as a show. You can select any project you want, but if you want to send the money to this show, select Radical Christianity, and then put in the value that God has put on your heart. And then, of course, hit send so that it gets to us. And if you can do that, that would be fantastic. If you can't, there's other ways you can help too. Like maybe you can share the show on your social media. You know, you can tell a friend about it. You can make your sister sit down and watch it with you. You can turn on the TV while your mom's laying in bed and can't get up. However it is that you can do to spread the word about this show. I just wanted to let you know that what we're doing here is really important. It is a God-sent thing. And if you want to partner with God on helping this show move forward, you can do one of those things. And if you can't do any of that stuff I mentioned, you can pray. Pray for us. Pray for the show. Pray for the show gets funded. Pray for us on the show that create me, the host, the team, whatever you feel like you can pray for all of us. Prayers are the way that we talk to God, and they are powerful. So please, if you can't donate, you don't think you can share the show, you can pray for us, all right? Thank you for your time, and now on with the show. All right, everybody, I hope you're going to enjoy this next guest. She comes highly recommended from a good friend of mine. So let's have a warm welcome for Rochelle DeLong. Rochelle.
Hello.
Welcome to Radical Christianity.
Thanks for having me on.
You know, you come recommended by a very good friend of mine, so I'm really excited to have a nice conversation with you and figure out, how Jesus is using you. So the way we start things is we talk about testimony and then how that leads into what you're doing in your life. So please share with us how you met Jesus.
So it was very young. I'm originally from Houston, Texas. Born in Oklahoma City. My parents moved to Texas when I was about 6 months old. Both my parents grew up Catholic. And I don't know if it's when I came along or, shortly before I was born, they transferred over to the Christian religion. And I grew up in a Pentecostal church. So I went to an Assembly of God church, grew up very faith-based. So as a kid, I am a firm believer in how you're raised as kind of like those fundamental skills and beliefs and everything are, instilled in you as you're younger. So I am very grateful that my parents brought me up in a church that, how do I say it, was very open about, what they believe in, what's right and wrong, things like that, and grew up I was in that church until about high school. Went to youth group, Sunday school, all the things. I was actually a Sunday school teacher, so I love kids. That was really cool, but it was nice to kind of connect with the little kids and, still, go through some of those Bible stories like David and Goliath and how those things really apply to, real life and kind of how we apply those things to our everyday situations. And then when I moved out here to California, my parents started going to a Methodist church back in Houston. So that's kind of where I go when I go back home. But here in Fresno, I go to Cross City. I love the church. I've gone to the Well. I've gone to North Point. Those are all great churches as well. I just feel very much at home at Cross City. Pastor Dave, he is also an Oklahoma Sooners fan. So it's kind of God's way of saying like, hey girl, you're home. I grew up a Sooners fan. So anyway, yeah, that's, I've grown up in church my whole life. And I decided as an adult, like I am still very strong in my faith. I know what I believe in, and I love connecting with other people in this community on the same level as that. We're all here to do better in the world, and there's a foundation where we start with. So, yeah.
So so obviously with the life in the church, there's got to be good stories of, ways God's used you, while growing up, So do you have an interesting anecdote or two?
Yes. So actually, back when I was going to the Assembly of God Church, our pastor, it was the youth pastor. He saw a need in our inner city in downtown Houston. It was called the Fourth Ward projects, if you will. We went out there on Saturday mornings. It was called Sidewalk Sunday School. And I was going there with my family, my brother, and some of the other members of the church. And we would go out, and it would be, you'd be playing games, and we'd have lunch provided. And then there would be about half an hour where Pastor David, this youth group pastor, would, have a message for everyone out there. And it wasn't, we didn't do communion. There were some baptisms, which was amazing to see. And as a young kid, I was in middle school at the time. My brother, I think, was still in elementary school. We were going out there. I grew up very middle class, but my parents never made us worry about anything. I grew up in a very privileged life. So for me, using kind of our connection with the church and bringing some light and some hope and the word to some less fortunate families to really build them up and, hey, if you're strong in your faith and you trust in God, blessings are out there, miracles are out there, and, here's the foundation and, what you should stand. So that was really cool. And that's touched me even to my adult years when people ask, what did you do as kids? And, this and that. That's how we spent our Saturday mornings up until, we had sports going on later on in our life. But it was really cool just to see people change their lives for the better. And it really touched me to be very grateful for what I had and not to take things for granted.
Yeah, well, that's cool. So you said you were a Sunday school teacher.
Yes.
What grades did you teach?
So it would have been, I think it was kindergarten into first grade. So they were little guys.
Littles.
Yes.
Yeah. So you had like the fun little books to teach them with.
We did. And oh my gosh, I just forgot the show.
Did you have a felt board?
We did have a felt board. We had a chalkboard. We had all the things. What was the cartoon with the vegetables?
VeggieTales?
VeggieTales. Oh my gosh, love that. We would watch. That would be like every other Sunday, but yeah, I love that because it's easy for those kids. You can read the stories and you can read, the condensed Bible and things like that. But I really thought that the kids loved that, the VeggieTales, and I mean, I did too.
Yeah, VeggieTales was past my time, but I have caught quite a few, and
right.
It's cute.
It is.
It's
easy for them to follow.
Yeah, and it's energetic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's especially kids that are these days are used to watching TV. So,
correct. Yeah.
Or their phones now.
Yeah, the tablets and the phones are always out.
What's up with like kindergartners having tablets?
I know. I didn't have my first cell phone until high school.
Yeah, well, they didn't even have cell phones when I was in high school. Cell phones were like these big, huge things in boxes when I was in high school.
Like the briefcases.
Yeah, when they were in your car,
yes.
It was like a big, huge. Yeah. So are you doing anything with Cross City now as far as missions or outreach?
So I haven't gotten fully into the volunteer side with the church. I do go to the 9:15 service, and I love it. I have helped with a couple Christmases. We do a big drive for gifts. So anywhere from like a newborn up until about 18 years old. Our church works with some other nonprofits. They work with some schools to figure out like if there's families in need that, have children and can't really provide something that they want. We have a huge call out to the members of our church, make sure you guys stop up front, grab a card. It'll say if it's a boy or a girl, what age they are, what they're interested in. And then I was a part of making sure those cards got out. I think I've done it for 2 years now. And then last year or 2 years ago, I helped them wrap the gifts and get all of that situated. So yeah, that's what I've been doing so far. I've been on their softball league for 1 or 2 seasons. My hand-eye coordination is terrible. That was more for the socialization part, but yeah.
I didn't know they had a softball league.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was fun.
Is it all internal, or do they compete against other churches?
There are other teams that come in, so some other churches, and then just some other I don't know, casual leagues that come in. But yeah, it was fun.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all cool. So obviously, growing in the church, that kind of stuff. Did you have any stories of backsliding? College time. I mean, you were doing sports in college, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, college sports has a interesting influence.
It does. Yeah, so I wouldn't call it backsliding. I mean, my faith is always there, and there, I'll say no to things that I don't believe in and things that I don't want to see or whatever. I definitely had my fun in college, but it's nothing where, I lost faith or I wasn't, relying on the word to get me through certain things. So I will say, I've gone through some down times and depression and things like that, and it's hard to admit it, but that's really when you really dig deep and, ask God, when is this going to get better, and trying to figure out what he's trying to teach you and, the lessons along the way. So I will say in college, that's definitely something I went through. Mm-hmm. But for sports, in high school, I grew up in Houston, Texas, like I said. We prayed before every game. Our coach was tough on us, but he was very faith-based as well. So, it was nice to be surrounded with people like that, because we all kind of leaned on the same thing to get us through some tough circumstances.
Yeah, Texas is good for that though. Mm-hmm. So I've been through Texas a few times, and it's a generalized faith-based community. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're not there's not too much frowning on faith-based activities like there are here in California.
Yeah. And even in high school, we had what was it called? Prayer at the flag pole, or I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was a very Texas wide program. So one time a month, it would be a certain point of first period almost. So it kind of ate into some of your school. Students would go out there, faculty would go out there. They would pray over the school. They'd pray over the community. They'd pray over our administration. So that was really cool. I don't know if California or our area does that, but that was kind of a really cool thing too, as God is still very much involved in public schools out there. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's not so much around here. Maybe more in the Central Valley than the rest of California, but yeah, not very heavily. It's actually a problem, Mm-hmm. I was telling you before the thing, there was actually the lawsuits back in the 60s that got the Bibles out of schools and got prayer out of schools, and where teachers are not allowed to do it. They're not, they get in trouble if they talk about that kind of stuff. And that it's not just California. I mean, that's nationwide.
Right.
So it's the thing is that Texas just kind of thumbs themselves at the bigger rules sometimes,
yes.
So they get away with a lot of stuff because of Texas.
Yes. And I don't know what it's like now. I left in 2005. I know things have probably shifted a little bit, but. Yeah, and I do like that about the Central Valley, like we were talking about earlier. I mean, going down Nees, you can hit so many different churches and, really feel like you can find your home and find where your place is at. Yeah.
Well, that's the one thing that about I mean, they call it California's Bible Belt, but I look at it like it's kind of an inevitable situation, it's the largest concentration of churches in the world. Mm-hmm. Here in the Central Valley, and it has a lot to do with that. It started out as a huge ag community, and then the need for churches because of the concentration of people, because California is so populated, and then what happens is that over time. It just grows and grows and grows, and we have something like 450 churches just in Fresno and Clovis alone.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, just awesome. Fresno, Clovis alone.
Yeah.
If you spread it out to the whole Central Valley, the number gets exorbitantly larger. I don't have an accurate tally because I've been trying to get somebody who has one.
Right.
I've heard as much if you consider the Central Valley, which is roughly Tulare County to, Madera County. You know what I mean? That spread. Yeah, they say it's about 2,500.
That's awesome.
If you go San Joaquin Valley, which is Bakersfield to Sacramento, that it's like 5,000.
Okay. Yeah, we took up half of it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that, as you get closer to Sacramento, there's also a lot more churches, but some of those churches are really small. I was amazed to hear that the average church, not the average church here, but the average church in general, has about 72 members.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, that's a small church.
Yeah.
And then I've seen some churches, from interacting with them that are kind of small, like, like 100, 150 people in the church total, and then there's some that are just like, again, we're in an area that's a little bit concentrated. So, we like on Knees, like most of the churches down there have, 1,000 people or more. Yeah. That's why that's why there's so many there, because there's a lot of people to feed.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's really interesting. So, all right. So you have a business now. It's the business. You got to tell us about it.
Yeah. So the Social Spree. I do wedding and event planning, and it'll be 10 years that I have had my business in September of this year. So it's awesome. I kind of, I've been in events professionally since I graduated college, and it's just kind of been in my blood. My parents have always liked to entertain, and when my brother and I would have birthday parties, it would be themed, block party, barbecue, all that kind of stuff. So we've just been a very social family. That's been my upbringing. And when I went to Fresno State, I had no idea what I wanted to do with, my career. And it was an internship with ESPN Radio my last year at Fresno State that got me into it and figuring out I wanted to do it for a profession. I worked with the promotions and operations department. So we were doing the Fresno State football tailgates, spring teeny, fall teeny, radio remotes, little one-off events. So that's kind of what jumped me into it. I worked at Tachi Palace in Lemoore as their entertainment coordinator. So I was advancing the concerts with the tour managers, meet and greet, hotel and airport transfers, the ushers, all the things. So I worked with the concerts. From there, I went to LinkedIn, the networking site up in Mountain View, and worked there for about 6 months. I ran their intern event program. So essentially I was selling the company to these interns with all these fun events and, the tech culture. So they would take a full-time position from us over Google or Apple or, Facebook or whoever. And going into taking a leap of faith and really trusting God for what my next pivot was going to be in that career, I was offered a full-time program manager position at LinkedIn. But I also had the opportunity to move back to Fresno and start my event planning business with a guaranteed income running an event venue. So I wasn't going to be leaving a job, having to start from scratch and wondering where I was going to be making money right away. So prayed on it a lot, leaned on my parents a lot, and I took that leap of faith and gave up. That was a pretty decent income to come back to the Fresno, come back to the Valley and start my business, because that was, at the time, like in my heart, I knew kind of where I wanted to take my career and where I wanted to take my life. And I got set up very well, an amazing family and business that really put all their trust into me to run their venue. And I was able to kick off my business from there because I was getting guaranteed clients, into my, right to me. I built my network through that, my vendor connections and everything. So it just kind of took off from there. And here I am all this time later. It's been awesome.
So you obviously, weddings is a pretty big deal. I used to do wedding photography before the iPhones came out, and everybody just loved it.
Right.
And I'm like, it's kind of hard to charge people $5,000 for a wedding, pictures when everybody's got
there's stuff going on.
Yeah, the competition got stiff, and and the quality of what you would get to a wedding got down, and you know what I mean. So it was just one of those things I stepped away from.
Okay.
I'm sure you've seen enough to know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But I have seen some really amazing weddings, which, the coordinators tend to have to juggle a whole bunch of stuff because no wedding goes flawless.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
So it's...
No one wedding, no one event is ever the same.
Right.
And you can have everything done to a T. And I've never had anything go like significantly wrong or, something bad happen. But, you always have to think on your toes. Like, okay, the ceremony, we started 15 minutes late. So now this is going to eat into cocktail hour. You move around, keep the vendors up to speed. Or I had a wedding one time where grandma was in charge of bringing the rings on the wedding day. She said they were there before we were walking down the aisle. I lined everyone up. The rings were not there. We had to send someone home to get them real quick, bring them back. And you just kind of, they're like puzzle pieces. You just got to move stuff around and put it back together a different way.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's it keeps you on your toes.
Yes, it definitely does.
Yeah. So what kind of events do you like doing the most?
So weddings have been my bread and butter this whole time. That's been something that's been a little more consistent. And I do enjoy doing non-wedding events. So I love the milestone birthdays. I've done a couple sweet 16s. I've done a 50th birthday party that was all out. I mean, nothing left to spare. That's a lot of fun. I've done a 100th birthday party. I'm doing a 90th this year. I love those milestone events because you get to work with the person. I mean, weddings are definitely a personal, they have their own personal themes and their connections and everything. But there's a lot of the same things that happen. The birthday parties are totally different. So, you work with the guest of honor on, I don't know, like growing up pictures, and you kind of get to talk to them about what they did in, the Fresno area and what they did for high school and kind of incorporate all of that into their event. So that kind of stuff is fun for me.
Yeah. Do you ever run into opportunities to witness while you're doing all that?
Sometimes, yeah. It just, it kind of depends on how it gets brought up. And, sometimes I've made some great connections that way. Yeah.
Yeah. You got a story of anything where somebody was,
Yeah, not really so much to witness to anyone. I have a couple that's coming up in the spring of 2025. They're very strong in their faith and some two different churches here in town. And it's just kind of cool to talk to them about like their, the Bible studies that they go to and things like that I want to get involved with. I actually haven't yet, but we are working on getting a couple girlfriends together and starting our own Bible study. So that's something that's coming up that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other interesting stories of how God's been working in your life? I mean, obviously God's been taking care of you. That's an obvious thing. You know what I mean? And it seems like you've pretty much had your eyes focused on Him, which just that whole story from beginning to end is, it's a good testimony of for people that are wondering how they want to live their life or, that kind of thing. So, it's like if you got kids, just get them in the Bible, keep them there.
Right. Yes, definitely. Yeah. I guess more recently, I have been praying a lot about shifting my business into where weddings aren't the majority of my calendar. I've been praying on that for the last couple years, and slowly God has been shifting that a little bit. So I've been picking up more corporate clients, a couple festivals. So it's been nice to have that little change of pace, even though my weekends are totally eaten up regardless. It's nice to have that change of pace because I needed a little change, and that's what He's providing now. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, weddings can get old.
Yeah, a little. Sometimes, and sometimes it's just. I think it's more working in the same area all the time, and there's only so many wedding venues here that can accommodate certain things. So it's been nice with these festivals and these other galas and corporate events. You're working in. You're working in parks, you're working at Fresno State, you're working at, different areas like that. So it's been fun.
Yeah, most galas I've been to have been at the Grand Ballroom.
I've had a couple at the Grand, yes, and they're great. So they're easy to work with. But yeah, it's been nice to work at some different areas.
Yeah. So what's your favorite venue?
Ooh, that's tough. Oh gosh, put me on the spot. There's so many good ones in the area. Panoche Creek River Ranch was the event venue that I managed for about 7 years. It was the old Cobb Ranch forever ago across from Valley Children's. I loved working there because it was a huge open space. The clients got to come in and pretty much make it their own, whether they wanted a tent, they wanted certain lighting, they wanted to use this area over this area. That was really nice. Let's see, Rochelle Vineyards in Sanger. They're a cute little winery. They can accommodate about like 150, maybe 200 people. Super sweet family, super easy to work with, and it's just a gorgeous, like, minimalist property. I do like venues where you can kind of come in and make it your own, because for me, if we're going into a venue where everything is just kind of checking a box, it's, it kind of puts me into a corner, and, the creativity just isn't as wide with those. So those are the venues that I really like working with. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So you're not like, so the ones like, not to put them down, but the ballroom and the 1080, the Pacific, what they call it, the Pacific.
Oh yeah, I haven't done the Pacific Bell or whatever that building is.
Yeah,
I know
it used to be the old Security Bank building.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't actually done any events there, but the Grand has been super easy. Alma there is, you have your venue rules, and here's this and that, but she's super easy. And the couple events that I've done there, we use some of their basic rentals or their basic inclusions. And then as long as we leave the venue as we left it and we're not punching holes in the wall, they're good about letting us, really personalize the space. So
well, that's good.
I like them.
And then like Copper River, they're probably not too open to personalization, huh?
Copper River's fine. I've only done a couple galas there, and we used the outdoor facility. We didn't use the indoor.
Okay.
And yeah, it was nice. Luckily, we were working with good weather, because sometimes outdoor facilities can be brutal if you're working with the heat or you're working with rain. Like, that could be kind of tough. But yeah, Copper's been easy to work with too.
Yeah, the only thing I like about Copper is that the outdoor photos are amazing.
Yeah, they get some good lighting out there.
They get really good light. It's almost like they positioned their, like, knowing how the sun came up and set down, they positioned everything for, like, to work with the way the sun moves across the sky.
Yeah.
I don't know if they did it on purpose because it's a golf course, but
they knew what they were doing at some point.
Yeah, at some point. All right. Well, is there anything that you would like to share that you really want our audience to know about? I mean, it's a faith-based audience.
Yeah.
They're going to be cheerleading you. But
yeah, for sure.
Anything that you'd like to share?
I don't know. Nothing else. I would definitely say, like you said earlier, like keeping your kids, rooted in that foundation, and find a church that you like, and get involved more than I've been involved, but get involved and. Find a whole new group of friends, and, you guys can do life together and keep your faith strong. And those are the kind of people you lean on if you need someone, to help you through something. That's kind of it. I've been very blessed to grow up in that kind of lifestyle. So yeah, if parents can get their kids into something young, it just kind of instills in them through adulthood.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You know what? One thing we say here is you're definitely rad for Christ.
Yes.
You're definitely fired up for Jesus.
Yes.
And we love to see that here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
God bless you.
You too.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another episode of Radical Christianity. I appreciate that you have met with us here tonight, and that you are taking the time to follow us on this journey. We are in our second season now. We have been basically just being obedient to God and trying to get things going, and we're so glad that you've joined us. There is a pretty heavy message in today's episode about Armenian genocide and, fathers and families, and all this is important. This is important stuff. I hope that you were absorbing it and taking it to heart. There's some people out there right now who are watching that are feeling Jesus tug on them. Some of the stuff that we talked about really kind of hit you where you live, and I know that, and I want to reach out to you right now and tell you that, a decision for Jesus is never a negative thing. I've never known anybody that had a negative result after deciding to follow Christ. It is not something that you regret. So if you're afraid, I can understand fear, but let me just reassure you that there's nothing to fear. If you are wondering how you make this commitment to Jesus, how you get Jesus in your life, it's actually pretty simple. You just talk to him, right? You just say something like, Jesus, I need you. I need you to come into my life and turn me into a person that you've designed me to be. I don't want to do things my way. I want to do them your way. and help me accomplish that, you know. Something along that line. Just speak from your heart. Just talk to him and tell him that you want to give yourself to him and learn his ways and be the person that he created you to be the best you that you can be. And if you took the time to say something like that to Jesus while watching this show or a rerun of this show, I would really appreciate it if you go to our website. That's radforchrist.com. That's RAD, the number 4, Christ.com. And on that website, we have a Got Saved form. If you would fill out that form, I'd be able to send you a Bible and a gift, and I would happily do that. And, you know, if you don't happen to have a Bible and you're watching this show right now, you know, you can just fill out that form again, and if you need a Bible, I'll send you a Bible. Also, if you have a question, there's an Ask a Question form on there. If you have something you want to know about the Bible or this show, or, you know, math homework, whatever it is that you need a question answered, feel free to fill that form out. Let us know. We will try and get that question answered for you. And then if you have a prayer request, we also have a form for that. We would love to take the time to pray for the things that you need taken care of in your life. So send us your prayer requests. We'll be happy to help out with that. I just want you to know that we are here to serve. But this is the most important part of all. This right here. That is that Jesus Christ loves you. And so do I. Thank you for watching Radical Christianity. We will see you next week.
And I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me.